Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is prayer. And what is the attitude that we bring to prayer? Is it a pleading and a begging, or is it a place of gratitude and visualizing desire, the desired outcome? I think it'll be an interesting conversation. But before we get started, let's take a minute to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together and vigorously rub your hands together to feel all those sensations, the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, and the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning. It's good to be here with you on this Friday morning. And we're going to talk about prayer. And oftentimes, what brings us to a space of prayer is a sense of desperation, a feeling of powerlessness and helplessness, and often despair. And oftentimes in the space of prayer, from that place, the prayer occurs as a begging and a pleading and a bargaining. Like if you fix this. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. I'm not seeing your comments in my regular chat, so I'm thrilled to see that you're here. I'm gonna see if I can monitor the chat from Facebook. So I will keep my eyes open, and we can converse from there. So anyway, prayer is often inspired by darkness, by our experience of darkness and helplessness or hopelessness. And it's often experienced as a pleading to please make things right. It's a request, and oftentimes it's invoking the worst of our projections, our worst case scenario. So where this is coming from is that I have a friend who was in a very dark place, and we scheduled a time to talk, and they didn't show up and have kind of gone dark since our last communication when we arranged that time to connect. And so I've been noticing that my mind goes to the dark place, like what could have happened to this person, the worst case kinds of scenarios. And I don't really have a way to be following up to find out what's come of them, other than the phone number that I've had for them. And of course, it could be something as simple as they lost their phone and have been out of communication for that reason. And what I was noticing is that what was driving my prayers for them was fear initially. And that from that space of fear, I recognized that if there's power to my prayer, what I was doing was reinforcing whatever darkness might have been there. And that wasn't really what I wanted to be doing. So I moved my intention to a focus on sending love and light and making that my prayer, that as I connect to this space of love and light, that be what was sent in prayer, and moving that through gratitude and appreciation from a higher frequency. That's really what we're talking about here, because what is prayer? Prayer is an intention. It's a directed intention. And when we often talk about manifesting, prayer is a vehicle of manifestation. It's focused attention and intention with some degree of emotionality that is powering that intention. And so when we pray, doesn't it make sense? Or when we have an intention, doesn't it make sense to be focusing on a higher frequency, to be directing our energy with that higher intention? So Rosalind says, prayer different from meditation. I think so, and maybe not so different. I mean, oftentimes meditation is meant to be presence without any particular focus or intentionality other than connecting. And I think that prayer is perhaps a directed intention, just like our manifesting kinds of intentions. That's really what prayer is, right? When we're intending to manifest something, isn't what makes it different from prayer? I think in maybe for many people, prayer is the invocation of a deity or some kind of other intelligence, other energy. In my context, and I'm not saying that this is how it should be, but for me, the prayer, meditation, manifesting, all of it is connecting us with a universal energy. And so it's not, for me, invoking a deity, an other, like a God head sort of thing, as much as connecting with the energy of the universe. And for many of us, the way that we do that is by talking to something that we call God, whatever that may be, and connecting with that intelligence of the universe, maybe in a named way. So that might also make a distinction between prayer and meditation. But I think the most effective prayer is a meditation. It's a means through which we find a connection with something greater than ourselves, with a more universal energy that is perhaps it's our expansive self, perhaps it is an existing deity, or deities, or entities, energies, intelligences. But mostly, I think what prayer is the focused intention. And what I notice is that in expressing our desires for something, we often express what we don't want. And I think that can occur with prayer as well, where we are thinking of the worst and, please don't let them be injured. Please don't let them be harmed, rather than seeing them for whom we're praying be safe and sound and surrounded by light and love, just as an example. So it's interesting to me, the fervent prayers are often really kind of a begging for a control that we've lost, or an outcome that we feel powerless to affect, where in fact, when we connect, we are able, when we elevate our frequency and connect with that greater frequency, we're able to harness that energy more directly. At least that's my hypothesis for the moment. May or may not be true. Test it for yourself. But it's interesting. It's interesting how we're led to pray in desperate moments. And in those moments, in our prayers, we're often projecting that desperation. And I think that there are ways to connect that can be more powerful, that can lead us into a space of greater presence. So back to your point, Rosalind, I think that prayer is a meditation. And when we meditate, we're not looking to be amplifying the darkness, right? And I think so in spaces of hopelessness and helplessness, there's the power of that space in prayer may be in the surrender, may be in the recognition that there are things that are beyond our control as this limited form, and that in order to feel in order to affect change in those situations that are so dire and extreme, we reach to something greater than our bounded self, than our physical form, to reach into another realm of consciousness and awareness. And the power of that kind of prayer is very much from the driving emotion that moves it. The energy of that emotion is what catalyzes the prayer. Again, not fact, that's my hypothesis, but I'm testing it out and it seems to be holding so far. So it's interesting, take a look and notice if you pray, when you pray, when does your directing of energy become prayer rather than meditation? And what is the quality of that energy when you're engaged in prayer? Is it desperation? Is it praying for relief from a given experience? Is it connecting to faith? Is it expanding that the sense of surrender, the sense of allowing the universe to unfold in its way, in its perfection, even though it may not seem anywhere near perfect? So, because we hear the term fervent prayers, what would make a fervent prayer be answered is perhaps the intensity of the intention, the intensity of the energy, the power behind that emotional power that's behind the request. And the thing is that when we make requests in prayer, there's some part is affirming that request has not been filled. And so I'm wondering if our prayers would be much more effective if we were to be able to presence ourselves to the desired outcome with that intensity of energy and gratitude and surrender and appreciation and these higher frequency kinds of energies. So when people say, please pray for me, what I tend to do, and I'm not saying I'm any kind of master when it comes to prayer, anything but what I do is to be seeing, for instance, if someone has an ailment, to be seeing them healthy and whole, rather than saying, please make this go away. Because in saying, make this go away, it's affirming the existence of whatever it is that you're wanting to make go away. But if you're looking to have them be healthy and whole, or to have them be in a space of tranquility and peace, or a space of transformation, or a space of the greatest fulfillment of their soul's purpose, all of that is different from saying, please make this go away, please heal this. Please heal this is maybe different. Please bring them to a place of healing. I think that there's a tremendous power in our language, and we get to be aware and alert in our languaging, even when, and maybe especially when it comes to prayer. I think that a focused intention that's catalyzed by emotion is an extraordinarily powerful direction of energy. And there have been studies that I've read of where people were actually, they were meditating even more than praying, but in cities, and then the crime rate in the city was dramatically reduced through this period of meditation. So we do have the capacity to impact our environment. And whether or not what we do often pray for specific outcomes, right? Because we think we know what's best, right? So, we will pray for someone's healing, or we'll pray for someone's ease. I've talked to you about Carol Sanford, and she's pretty much a dynamo, and she's got ALS and is facing her death from this very debilitating disease. And I said to her, I wish you ease. And she said, well, I understand you're wishing me ease because that's what you need. You need for me to have ease. But that wasn't what she needed. And for her, what I realized was that it might be better to wish her the journey that she's choosing, to wish her the fulfillment of the journey that she's choosing. Part of me was saying, well, I should have wished her transformation, because I know that that's one of her values. But I don't know that that's what she's looking for through this journey. I believe it is, but still, again, that's my projection of what I believe she wants. And so we don't know the greater workings of the universe. We don't know what is in proper time and proper, whatever proper means. But we don't know how all the machinations work together. And it's so interesting when I look back over time and see how different circumstances have woven together to create other transformative circumstances, and how these seeming coincidental kinds of occurrences weave into this magnificent, complex tapestry over time in a way that we would never be able to see as the threads were moving through the warp and the weft. And there's such an intricacy about how things seem to evolve and emerge over time to create and to generate outcomes that we wouldn't have predicted. So, for instance, this was just a very interesting thing. Like, most recently, I met this person who has a company for a reinvented wheel. I think I've talked to you about that. The company is called Shark Wheel, and it's based on a discovery that is a revolutionizing discovery for our world and for technology. And the tracing back the threads of what occurred to make that meeting possible, it was fascinating, because it went back to 2017 when I took a coaching and of course it goes back further and further, but I took a coaching program and I met this person who later became a client who invited me to an event. I went to the event and I met this person. That's a deep oversimplification, but it's pretty fascinating when you look at how things tie together and how things emerge and evolve in a way that we never would have anticipated. And so when we pray, we're often praying for an outcome that we believe to be the best outcome, or that we want to be the outcome. And we often do that rather than surrendering to the perfection of the universe, if indeed you ascribe to the notion that it is a perfect universe unfolding in its perfection, which can be a real stretch when life doesn't show up the way that we want it to, right? And our prayers are often a plea for deliverance from whatever the state is that we are in a moment, a state of grief or a state of terror. And we do have when it comes to our state, we do have the ability to move ourselves into a more elevated place, even in the prayer for relief. So in our prayers, perhaps we can put our attention to evoke and invoke the outcomes that we truly desire, rather than reinforcing the thing that we don't want. And we also get to acknowledge that there may be a greater plan afoot than we can recognize. So maybe one of the greatest prayers is to call for peace in the unfolding of life, in its way, in its form, in its direction. So with that, happy Friday to you. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you, did I say each weekday morning? I may have. I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living. And I wish you a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And until next time, so much love to you.